качающийся, que bogins quebrando os olhos. Fogo. Да, бабук.
Battle for Earth begins.
Anything else that might get in the way of our ideal must be destroyed immediately.
The ultimate enemy has arrived. Enemy of another mind. Their single purpose: destroy our world.
I'm sure God would understand the steps we're taking.
Those who oppose them, die.
Let me repeat that. If this mission fails, if we are unsuccessful, we have no future.
We've had enough! Isn't it about time that people realize the ones posing the most threat are none other than yourselves?
This is not me. This resulted naturally.
What this is war.
Commence destruction.
Now, these pirates will shake the foundations of the Alliance and change the course of history.
The attitude that's ticking people off.
If they can stay alive,
Those Gundam pilots are desperate. They'll battle even if it means forfeiting their lives. Mission accepted.
of course not.
Just like it is with the stars, there are bright ones and there are those that are dim.
Both sides prepare for the final battle. Suit up.
Nothing good can ever come from staying with normal people.
Be very careful.
Mankind has reached the stars.
There has to be some form of punishment.
Love the women that face when I speak. Those are the ones that love me. I'm out! Get set! And go back! But I'm surging with women. Hillary Clinton's a bigot. He would not be my first choice, that I can tell.
Because you'll be in jail.
Would I approve waterboarding? You bet your ass I'd approve. And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding. Go home to mama.
where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
I guarantee you there's no problem.
I think we should take a drug test prior to the debate. I never heard that one before.
Circuitry and metal, cold and emotionless, carry out tasks without conscience. Robots, thousands, programmed for destruction. March towards the future is coming. Man's greatest inventions, making the impossible possible, are no longer under our control.
Technological strength will just become a threat to the Earth.
This new breed of technology makes humanity obsolete. Robots, thinking, acting on their own, begin their march toward domination. These machines, built by man, serve no one. The robots among us, watching, waiting, calculate their new world order. Their time is coming. They cannot be stopped.
Attention, strange weapons are approaching. Attention, strange weapons are approaching.
With perfect weapons and superior intelligence, robots rule this planet. Let the fall of mankind give way to a new age.
This little mudball of a planet is doomed anyway.
Century 0079. The one-year war rages on. Spaceoids against Earth dwellers.
I'm gonna drive the Xeon forces right off the Earth.
Zeke against Faye.
Not bad for a Betty, but I bet you're not ready for this!
As both sides prepare for the final battle.
Run for it!
The secret love of two enemies may be mankind's only hope for peace.
Feeling it, you believe you can still fire at the enemy?
They're no better than they are.
You want me to fight? Well,
Again.
boy has the right to dream. There are endless possibilities stretched out before him.
Trust in your own power.
Whatever happens from now on, you stand firm and face your destiny without fear, but with courage.
What awaits him down the path, he will then have to choose.
No one's gonna give you a map. You've gotta walk your own path.
The children leave their homes in search of this quest.
What is thy desire?
As they search, they are always asking questions. What's out there? What's waiting for me?
Why was I made? Who made me? And what did they make me for?
Are you gonna go up into space with your old man or not?
Maybe I'll never get over this. I've lived my life following my dreams, and I don't have any regrets.
You're gonna just keep running away?
Just keep running away? I'm not running.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Believe in yourself and create your own destiny. Don't fear failure.
So they're gonna have to take my life before they take my people. Y'all dealing with a different we ain't taking it no more, bro. Now go and get y'all some motherfucking business while we gonna get free. I love you, I'm Moses, but it's still up out here.
Excuse me, bro. You're excused. And that's your bro.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Controlled Substance. Let me just sure my audio is working. You know what? Look at that. It is. It's working better than it's ever been. It's perfect. My audio is perfect. It's more perfect than anyone has ever seen before. Fix my little cable, though. How are you guys today? How's everyone doing? We got quite the show. Quite the show. We're going to be talking about why women shouldn't vote, and we're also going to be talking about a holy war that is brewing. I've seen some rumblings lately. I've seen some rumblings between Muslims and Christians specifically, and there's always tension between the transportation department and these other two religions. I don't know what I can say on this channel, so maybe we're going to have to come up with some code words before we start diving in, but I think talking about Islam and Christianity is pretty well accepted political conversation. The transport department, maybe a little bit less. Maybe a little bit less so. One sec. Let me make myself a little bit brighter. There we go. Okay. So it's going to be a good one. We got some spicy stuff to dive into. Should be great. Should be awesome. Should be fun. Glad you guys are here with me today. Let's dive right into it. Blue pill time, baby. Okay. First things first. I'll eat your brains. Let's start out with Pearl. Pearl's the blue pill for today because she's, for those of you that don't know, Pearl is one of the red pill streamers. She's one of these red pill streamers, mostly talking about women, mostly talking about dating, not explicitly political, but she's starting to dive into that a little bit. She is based in UK right now, I think. And she gets a lot of heat because she's seemingly doing her best, but she's not an expert. And she doesn't claim to be an expert. I think that's part of her charm. She's just a normal girl who's not afraid to dive into some of these topics. That's what I've seen, at least. Her newest video is about 6 minutes long. She posted it on her channel. I saw this because Jordan Peterson's daughter initially. Jordan Peterson's daughter tweeted at her dad saying, "This is disgusting. This is despicable." And I think that's the general feel of things when you say that you don't think women should vote, or you think that women should that's it. That women shouldn't vote. I think she's pretty good at it. I think she has a charm about her because she just seems like a normal girl. And honestly, that's all it takes kind of in today's day and age, is just be a normal person, use your head, and then just talk about what you see, and you're going to get a lot of hate. Let's see if it's warranted. Let's see if it's anything to be fussed about. I have not watched this video. I just keep seeing it pop up.
A lot of people think I'm insane because I don't think women should vote. Everybody thinks I'm crazy for this opinion. If anything, this is probably my most extreme opinion. And I would like to tell you how I came to this conclusion. So what happened was I wanted to know why men were so angry about women. Why are there all these complaints about women? And when I started researching the stuff, it was pretty easy to figure out why. 90% of women have been on birth control. 1 out of 3 women has had an abortion. 1 out of 3 women has an STD. The average body count is over 5, so that your average wife has slept with over 5 people. 95% of women are not virgins on their wedding days. So I understand the complaint. Now,
okay, that's crazy. I didn't know some of those statistics. 90% of women have been on birth control? Is that real?
Women. Why are there all these complaints about women? And when I started researching the stuff, it was pretty easy to figure out why. 90% of women have been on birth control. 1 out of 3 women has had an abortion. 1 out of...
There's no way. Is that true? 1 out of 3 women has had an abortion? Holy guacamoles, dude. And they glance over... people like to glance over birth control because the doctors tell you that it's completely harmless, but birth control is not harmless. It's messing with your hormones. If you've, there are studies quite to the contrary, saying, well, basically saying there was that sweat test with the pheromones, right? So, this study said that women, they gave sweaty men's T-shirts to women on birth control and then not on birth control. And the women who were not on birth control were not able to pick out viable partners. I'll have to find this study because it was an interesting one. And I read it a while ago, but I'm sure you've heard about it before. A woman goes on birth control. She goes out, starts dating, because that's when you're on birth controls, when you're casually dating around these days, and ends up marrying someone. They go off birth control when they're trying to have a kid, and within a couple years, a divorce is happening. It's a story often told, and it's basically because it's jacking up your hormones. The reason that birth control even works is because it's taking your hormones, messing with them so that you don't have a period, so that you don't ovulate. And thinking that that won't do any sort of other secondhand effects, secondhand damage, is crazy. So the fact that 90% of women have been on birth control is dysgenic. It's absolutely selecting for improper mating just by the fact of messing with hormones. And what is it for? I mean, it's for hedonism. It's so women can go out and sleep with whoever they want without any consequences. Liberals and pretty much everyone these days thinks that's a good thing. Thinks that it has given women more autonomy. It hasn't given women more autonomy. It's ruined their lives. It's taking away their natural ability to mate. And 90%, they're giving these things out like candy. It is so harmful. I guarantee it's probably why we see such a high divorce rate. I guarantee it's why. Well, I mean that's a big part of it. I guarantee it's why women aren't happy as well, because it's dulling their senses. It's dulling their actual emotions. On the flip side, women who aren't on birth control are crazy. And this might get into it later, but like women being able to vote and work is probably a direct byproduct of birth control, because it just chills them out. I don't think this is good, but it is beneficial to women being more like men, because you're nuking their hormones basically, you know. So these other stats are crazy too, but I just want to do a little sidebar on that.
Out of 3 women has an STD. The average body count is over 5, so that your average wife has slept with over 5 people. 95% of women are not virgins on their wedding days.
That's crazy.
So I understand the complaint. Now I understand, okay, the quality of women, but I kept thinking, why, so this is the average American chick, why is it like this? And my second question was, why are men complaining about marriage? So these are men, we're gonna give them smiley face. They're saying don't ever get married. And I'm thinking, why? So then my next question was, why don't men want to get married? What I found out is that the courts, the legal system, all of society is catering towards women, okay? All of society is basically pandering and simping for women. For example, in the UK, if you accuse your guy of you get a free lawyer. Another example is free government handouts for women and single mothers. So we essentially have a system that is paying women to be single mothers. So when I would look at why are women so bad, it's like, okay, if you pay women to be terrible, then you're probably going to have more terrible women. I mean, it's just common sense. If you get paid to be a single mother, why wouldn't you break up your family? Well, I mean, morals, but that's a whole nother thing. So what I figured out when I started talking to some of these politicians, right? So we're going to do this. The guy is a politician. He's got a bow tie. Yeah, that's a bow tie.
It's Tucker.
Now, the issue is that the politicians, the only way they can get elected, the women vote for them. So the reason we can't see a change in these laws, where men can't get access to their children, where single mothers are being paid to be single mothers, all of these horrible policies is because the politicians can't change them because they won't be reelected. And then I started reaching it further. And I started to think, does every person deserve the right to vote? Should every person deserve the right to vote? And what I found out is that men are fined $300,000 if they don't enroll in selective service, where women have no skin in the game. And in the U.S. anyways, we're voting for a commander-in-chief. So is it really fair that if I vote for a president because of my feelings, and oh, he's so mean, I'm not going to name presidents, and instead I vote for somebody that's basically senile, and we go to war, is it fair that the men have to pay for that bad decision? Because essentially we have a society where men are just paying for women's bad decisions.
True.
Men pay the majority of the taxes. So who's paying for these women to be single mothers? Men pay the majority of alimony and child support payments. So again, the men are paying for the women to leave. Men build most of the inventions that allowed women to go to work. So the Roomba, the vacuum cleaner, the washing cleaner, men invented it so women could leave their home and leave little Timmy at home. And now we see the byproduct of this, where we have a more free society. But guys, our mental health is crazy out here. Everybody's, got depression, anxiety, all this stuff because women are raising the children by themselves. And single father homes have better outcomes than single mother homes, but the best outcomes is the parents together. And because our whole society is pandering to women voting and getting money from women, because women make 80% of consumer buying decisions. So we live in a society that's just constantly telling us what we want to hear all of the time. And we've basically been brainwashed for the last 100 years to think that women can really be equal to men. But the truth of the matter is that men run society. They run all of the industries that make society run. The only reason that women out-earn men is because we can monetize beauty, and men have subsidized industries. So men pay their taxes, and the government takes their taxes to make companies have quotas for women where they're not as productive as men. Okay? Now we have a whole system where women have been told what we want to hear our whole lives, and the people that suffer are the children. Now, I'm a reasonable gal. I can maybe get behind net taxpayers or something, but only if we get rid of all these subsidies for women. Because I'm really tired of women being paid to leave their husbands. I'm really tired of women divorcing their husband, taking half his and accusing him of a on the way out. I'm tired of this and I'm sorry, but the more power us as women have had, the more we have used it to basically legally use men. You know what? I don't think women should vote. That's my opinion. I could also maybe get behind a net taxpayer. And I think if we're going to vote, then equally enroll in the military and do all of the dangerous jobs in society. Go be a plumber. Go be an electrician. Go do all of the hard jobs. And if you don't want to do that, maybe you should just quit whining. So that's my...
Okay, I didn't stop it there because I was enjoying that. Here's the thing. At the end, she says, women, go do hard jobs, enroll in the military. That doesn't even work. It's not even a solution because, first of all, women won't do that, right? It's obviously a false choice. Like, women are not going to go become crab fishermen. And we don't want them to. Like, there is no world where... That's why I don't even bother offering up that ultimatum, because women should not be crab fishermen. Women should not be in mines or oil rigs, or they should not be in the military even. Women are not as strong as men. They don't have the same brain as men. And so they're not like... Women are not singularly focused and autistic in the same way that men are. Men will live in a completely happy, completely fulfilled life mining. There is not one woman on this planet that would be content, 100% content at the end of their life, feel like they've done their job, they've served their purpose from mining or crab fishing. Where men, 100%. That's like that's like in their blood. So even if you did want to pretend that the women could do those jobs as good as men, which they can't, it just sets up a faulty structure. We don't want them there because they're not as productive. It's the same way. It's the same reason why you have to have all these positive incentives for women CEOs and things and leadership positions, board of directors, all these leadership positions that they're trying to incentivize women into, is because they don't choose it on their own. They choose hospitality. They choose nursing. They choose more emotional, more community-oriented jobs. And to try and force them into these other positions, we have a capitalist structure. Like, this is kind of the old standby. It's like, why, if women are just as good or better than men at these jobs, why aren't, and they get paid less, right? Because they like to say that too. Then why aren't they getting snatched up? Why aren't they getting hired hand over fist and making all these companies better? It's because they're not better. So it doesn't work, right? So all this is to say that you shouldn't even give them the ultimatum, because it doesn't make any sense. It just gives them another avenue to cope and to try and explain away why they should be equal to men. I kind of wish that Pearl talked more about birth control and the sexual immorality of women, because it is indicative of what the problem is here. Taking a step back, zooming out, assuming that men and women are different, which I think is any normal person based in reality is gonna agree with that. Men and women have different proclivities. They have different genetics. They are built different. If that's the case, then they shouldn't be doing the same thing, right? They should not be interchangeable. If they're different, they cannot be interchangeable. And what does that look like? That looks like they should have different roles. Different jobs, different roles, different treatment. People should not be treated equally because they're not equal. It's just ignoring reality to pretend that everyone is equal. And she does bring up a good point here, though, is that it's all a very political, capitalistic system. If I want to talk entirely about this, do a whole show about it, I'll have to dig back into women's suffrage a bit more and pull up some examples of who funded that, why they funded it. But the high-level facts here are that most women did not want women's suffrage. And not only because it came with military enrollment, but because they weren't suited for it. They didn't want to. Women are less fulfilled when they are out working a corporate job than when they're at a job or at home fostering relationships. It's trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So this was not a natural movement. It was not a grassroots movement where women were fed up. It was very much like the civil rights movement, where it was propagated by higher-ups to advance their cause, to advance their position, at the detriment of the group that was being advanced. So women's suffrage was not natural. Most women did not want it. And why is that? Like, what is the purpose? Why would you want to force women to be able to vote? Well, it's exactly because of what we're talking about. It's masculinizing women. If you look at it from a capitalist point of view, 50% of your workforce is staying at home with their kids if you don't let women vote. Women don't want to go into work, and they don't want to work a line job. They don't want to work a 9 to 5 if they can't vote. You're paying into a system with your labor that doesn't yield you any say in what's going on. And so women's suffrage was an attempt to give women skin in the game so that they will be more apt to work. More of them will be independent, and you can catch them early, right? If you're 18 and you're not married yet, you have to go get a job. You're gonna feel like you need to vote. And if you have the right to vote, oppositely, you're going to naturally stay and work longer. It's all about pushing women into men's roles. And Pearl leans towards this stuff. It's kind of a men's rights. Men's rights activists have been talking about this for a long time. But the problem with men's rights activists is they're all whiny. They point out all these things, and they're not really wrong about whatever they say, but they just seem like bitches. It's just a bunch. What man is going to take time away from his hustle, away from his grind, to complain about how women are treated better than him? Like, that's just a nobody likes that person. So whether or not it's true, men's rights activists always come across as being betas, and it's unfair. It's a little unfair because they're not saying anything wrong, but that is the case. So it never gained any traction. It always got easily dismissed because the guys who were espousing these points were so unlikable. So I really like that Pearl is broaching this topic. I think it's important that she is broaching this topic as a woman and as a businesswoman. A lot of women feel like this. A lot of women don't want to be working for a job. They just don't. They would rather be at home with their kids. But they're stuck in this because this is how our system works now. You need to go and work. You need to pretend like you're into politics so that you can vote. And it's all just forced. It's all not in their wheelhouse. So I agree with Pearl. I think that women should not vote. But as she pointed out, the system is completely built around that now. You have a politician who relies on, well, specifically Democrats, get women's votes. So there's no way any sort of Democrat would abolish women's suffrage. And Republicans are so cucked by the Constitution that they wouldn't either, because they've been tricked into thinking that that equal voting rights is like baked into our country's founding, that everyone should be equal, included. And it's like, it's not like that. It wasn't like that at the start. It's much better to have a household vote. You need to think about what you're incentivizing. That's the full point here is you need to think about what you're incentivizing. If your priority is for women to make money for corporations, be in the workforce, have a say in how the country is run, then you want them to vote. If you want women to be happier, stay at home with their kids, run a household, you can't have women vote. And right now, our country is completely oriented towards maximum labor capacity. And so, if that's the case, then you can't have your workforce. You can't cut your workforce in half. You lose voters, you lose labor, and if you don't believe in the morality that propagates, then it's just an overall huge L for you. But if you do believe in the morality that propagates, which is a nuclear family with a mom and a dad, the mom staying at home and raising the kid, and the dad going to work and providing for the family, like it's always been. If you do believe in that and are willing to take a monetary hit for the total GDP of our country, then it makes perfect sense. So it all comes down to a morality issue, and it comes down to an issue of being able to objectively look at what a woman's role is in a thriving country, in a moral country. Like with everything that we talk about on this show, it always comes back to liberalism, and it all comes back to Christianity. There's really no way around it. This is the major battle line that's been drawn, and we'll talk about that in a second here when we get into the Holy War. But the battle in women's suffrage, insofar as there is one, is between women as cogs in a machine versus women as homemaking family mothers. You can't have both. Because we're trying to have both right now, and it doesn't work. This is why you see all the divorce. This is why you see incredible levels of unhappiness, sub-replacement birth rates. You can't have both. You can't have women as a cog and as a mother. And if you try to, the child suffers. So we need to figure out what is more important as a society. And I think it's inarguable that women as mothers is way, way, way more important than women working a 9-to-5 job. There just needs to be some sacrifice, as with anything, to dig us out of the quagmire that we're in. So, anyways, great video by Pearl. I'm happy that this is one of those things. I think men can have an opinion on it. I don't think anyone's opinion should be discarded because of who they are. Everyone is able to have an opinion, but some opinions are more worth listening to than others. And specifically when it comes to women being led off trail into voting and the labor force and all the things that come with it, I think it means exponentially more when you see a woman talking about this. Because, like I said, men who talk about it get discarded immediately. Even if they're making the same points. They just do. Particularly if you're trying to convince women. You know. Boss bitches are not going to be listening to men about divorce rates, alimony, military enrollment. Like, they just won't. So, anyways, great from Pearl. I like what she's doing here. I think Pearl's great. She just seems like a normal person. It's crazy how much a normal person stands out in the crowd these days. Someone because it does take a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to say things that you believe without worrying about repercussions. Because you can get absolutely annihilated for just saying a reasonable, normal thing. JLP says, women have been brainwashed to believe that to be valuable, they need to be like men. So sad. Yep. Yeah, it's very sad. Transgenderism plays into it too. Like, people need to stop pretending they are something that they are not. That's it. It doesn't help anyone. I understand if you don't think about it deeply enough that it feels good to try and pretend to be someone that you're not. And there are occasions for this. But a system based on that is completely unsustainable. It just doesn't work. So, and it's not fair to the people who are being fooled, really. This is the saddest part, is that women are trying their hardest to be men. They aren't men, and so they look at stats that say they aren't doing as well. They're not as happy, and they get bummed out, and they think it, and then they blame it on bigotry. They blame it on the patriarchy. It's not the patriarchy. It's that you're trying to fit into the wrong system. The system is wrong, not because of patriarchy, but because of the exact opposite. We need a patriarchal system because that is where people are in line with their roles. That's where people, that fits people into where they should be. So, everyone needs to stop pretending. Stop pretending. It's just hurting us. Men aren't women. Women aren't men. It's just that easy. Same with race, too. Different races have different advantages and disadvantages. It's all back to individualism. Individuals can be respected within a system with proper places. You can't fold margins into be everyone's trying to make marginal people the top of the hierarchy. And just think about a structure. Take the cornerstone, put it on top. Keep doing that. You don't have a structure pretty quickly. It's exactly what is happening when we ignore our roles. Cornerstones do not belong as the capstone. The capstone belongs as the capstone. And if you recognize that, there is meaning, there is fulfillment, there is happiness within the order. Wishing that the order wasn't the way that it is not helping anyone. It's just detrimental to mental health, to outcomes, to a society as a whole. Happiness comes from submitting yourself to a structure that is just. This is why we need a moral country. This is why we need a moral framework, because this is what produces moral people who are happy, fulfilled, and productive. Simple as that. Pretending otherwise does not make it so. Pretending otherwise just puts you in a terrible system. When you're misaligned with reality, the system will fail. Every single time. So, people need to come to grips with spirituality, morality. We need to figure that out as a country more than anything. And that kind of gets us into our next subject here. Next subject. Where the music goes? The music still playing? Can barely hear it. Can hear it now. Let me know if that's good or if it's too loud. Okay, so we'll switch into the black pill a little bit here because we're gonna dive into some arguments, and honestly, they're really pretty frustrating. And then we'll kind of zoom out. We'll start talking about some things that are a bit more high level, a bit more worthwhile to talk about. There's a clip that's been going around in kind of dissonant right-wing circles, and there's been a general battle brewing, and it hasn't fully come to fruition, but I believe it will in the next 4 to 6 months. It's starting to kind of peek its head up a little bit more. And I'm not talking about Christians versus the transportation department. I'm talking about Christians versus Muslims, Christianity versus Islam. So for those of you that don't know, some of the biggest red pill figures in our culture right now are Andrew Tate, Sneeko, a few others that are all converting to Islam. Islam is becoming popular in kind of a hipster way. It's becoming popular in a way that is rejecting atheism, but not fully, but not wanting to become Christian because Christian is too mainstream. So you see Andrew Tate go from being born and raised Christian, becoming atheist, and then becoming Muslim. You see Sneeko become atheist, straight to being a Muslim. There's a few others. I don't have names off the top of my tongue, but those are the main ones. And it's interesting because Muslims have been vilified in our country for a long time. Most of it's because of the billion-year war in Afghanistan and Iraq. A lot of it is because of the propaganda from 9/11. But they have been a scapegoat for Christian America for the last 20, 25 years, at least. Before that, it was Russians. And, you know, there's always an existential enemy to the moral framework of America. So to see some of these dissonant voices, these red pill voices, start to switch to Islam, it's curious. And there's something to unpack here with the red pill community as a whole that's indicative of why Islam is being chosen over Christianity. It basically boils down. Also, the red pill community is very much focused on male and female relations. Branching off of our topic with Pearl made her entire career. She's popular because she talks about relationships. Andrew Tate talks about being rich and powerful and famous through the lens of being attractive to women. It's similar to the pickup artist scene that was popular in the early 2000s. Unsuccessful men with women, unsuccessfully dating, can't get laid, incels. these guys are looking for some out. They're looking for a way to attract women because they are desperate. They are completely lacking in a sexual environment, and so they're looking for something to fill that lack. This is why they turn to systems, tricks like the dating stuff, and one step past that is this red pill talk that's coming about. And they're taking the red pill when it comes to dating, but not necessarily when it comes to other structures or other more nebulous morality topics. So almost all of these red pill content creators are now talking about the reality of men versus women. And they're looking at it within the lens of how can you become more attractive to women? If you have this mindset, if you know these things, if you dunk on liberal women, you will become more attractive. Andrew Tate, you get rich, you become a kickboxer, all these things, you'll become more attractive to women. Most of their framework, their worldview is completely based around setting things back in their place in order to gain success with the opposite sex. From Pearl's side too, it's about being more feminine, it's about not voting, it's about all these things. That is one step shy of where we should be at. And this is why I have a problem with red pillars converting to Islam. They're very much converting to Islam because it lets you be sexually promiscuous while still grabbing some base concepts. It seems almost entirely like people who are content creators who are becoming Muslim they do it just so they can get laid. And it's like a half step from the completely secularized worldview that we've been growing out of. Atheism was do whatever you want. Full materialist, full hedonism. There is no God. We do what we want. As long as you're a moral person, which is inherited from Christianity because we're in a Christian Western society. But forget about that. It's just all about science. It's all about doing whatever you want. When that starts to get adopted, then all of a sudden you start to see society decay. You stop being happy. You're still not getting laid, and so what's the problem here? Well, there's got to be a solution, and it's got to be more spiritual because everything else has not worked. Well, but I still want to have sex whenever I want. So what religion is more spiritual but still lets me pretty much do whatever I want? Islam. And so that's why you see such a resurgence of this. People are starting to pendulum swing their way back into morality, but Islam is like the half step. I can have my cake and eat it too if I say that I'm Muslim. Because Muslims are based in certain aspects, but it is a half step religion. It is a branch off of Christianity in many ways. The problem, why Christianity seems so cringe to these people, is because it is holistic. It preaches sexual morality as well. They don't like that you have to be a virgin if you're a Christian and you're following it. Protestantism is garbage because it doesn't. You don't actually have to follow any of these things because there's always gray area in the interpretation of the Bible. But if we're talking about Catholicism, we're talking about Orthodoxy, it's not part of the church to do that. You're not part of the community if you're out doing that. You're estranged from the religion. It's not necessarily the case in Islam. And to be very clear, I'm no scholar. I'm not a Christian scholar. I'm not an Islam scholar. I'm not a Talmud scholar. I'm not a Jewish scholar. I'm none of these things. I'm just seeing. This is what I'm seeing from where I'm at currently. And this is what I think is going on. There's an alternate route that a lot of people more my age are taking, which is paganism. Paganism is very similar. It introduces morality. It introduces something bigger than yourself, but still there is the level of it where you can still do things that you want to do. You don't have to fundamentally submit and change your life. So there's this weird war brewing between purists, which are primarily pretty much all Christians, Orthodox and Catholics, and this new weird half-step Islam and paganism. And I think we will find out at the end of the day that half-steps do not work. They do not work as a social cause, and they do not work as a moral cause, like a way to live your life. They're inconsistent as a worldview, too. So I think we're heading for this debate because it's starting to become more and more acceptable to talk about religion in these terms. And to be honest, the real problem is the transportation department, because even though they claim to be an Abrahamic religion, it really isn't. It's antithetical to Christianity, and Islam is antithetical to Christianity as well. But Muslims don't rule the world. You don't have to take a trip to Saudi Arabia in order to work in Con Inc. You don't have to go visit the Cube at Mecca in order to have a bank account in America. They're not the ultimate. They're not the big enemy. You know, there's clearly a group that is more positioned for final boss status. You know, but that being said, it's like we're on a side quest. Christians need to dispel Islam in the United States, in the West, in order to continue on their grand mission for the big boss, the big star at the top of the hill. You know, you can't get there without handling the mini boss first. The mini boss is Islam, and hopefully there's an epic struggle, and you beat the mini boss, and then that mini boss has like a big bandage on their head. They have some of those anime sweat marks, and they're like, epic handshake. I'll join up with you. I realized you've been right all along. We need to team up and fight the transportation department. Fight these transporters. I realize how wrong we've been. Jesus is king, and we need to win this war. Like, that's almost how things will go on like a macro video game level. First, we gotta BTFO these Muslims, then we head for the final boss. So check this out. This is Sneeko, and we'll get into the red pill. Sneeko has been walking around with this guy, Sikh Uthman. And this is a long video, so we're not going to be able to watch the entire thing, but this is an example. I think this whole video is cringe. I really do. And I wanted to talk about it because this is kind of the brewings of what's happening. The Muslims and Christians are starting to get into a dialogue because this needs to be settled before we move on. This is important. It's two lesser powers struggling for who's going to control the movement to take on the biggest power. I don't see another way of looking at it, really. I think this needs to happen before there needs to be an agreement or a winner before the big boss is taken on. A giant floating nose in a vat of acid tubes. You walk into a darkened room. Behind the curtain, there's a giant chemistry tube full of green bubbling liquid. As the bubbles dispel, you see wires and suction cups and and eels swimming through, and there's a giant nose in this container. As it laughs in an evil, maniacal way. This is the final boss, the Wailing Wall. You've passed the Wailing Wall. And you need to beat it in order to even be able to speak on the internet anymore. Okay. Anyways, check this out. We'll watch a few seconds of this, and then I think once we get a couple seconds in, I'll be able to kind of extrapolate a point from it.
Oh, that's the idea, yeah.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing, bro?
All right.
King. Yeah. You understand, your Lord, your God.
You know I couldn't miss this, man.
Excuse me. The people filming right now are Christian debaters. Both of these kind of do it full time. Uthman and the guy who we're going to be hearing talk a lot. We're seeing the POV of the Christians.
Look, the whole video is on the channel. Anyway,
Come on, bro.
Even the Christian Anthony that was with you guys there, even he admitted
It's all on
that
video.
You guys, it's all on video.
Yeah.
That you guys didn't let me
But
speak.
you
didn't
lied
have
about
a
the Quran
conversation.
verse.
Of course I did not lie about it.
So then why didn't you translate it?
All online.
Why didn't you translate it?
All online. People can look up the verses.
Why didn't you translate
You guys
it?
only come here to disrupt our da'wah. You don't want to give da'wah towards Christianity.
We do.
Want to disrupt.
We're
All
giving
you
da'wah
wanna
towards
do-
Christianity
all
right
you-
now.
No, you're not here to give me
This
da'wah.
is evangelism right here.
No.
We want you to have the
if
gospel
it
and have the
wasn't-
truth.
If it
If you-
wasn't about views, you would be at your table
But hold on,
talking
don't
to
you
people.
don't you
But
record?
you're not.
Well, we did that already.
We're here at our table.
But we're here to stop the
speaking.
lies. We're here to stop the lies and discussion.
You are the biggest liars that are caught on TV. You
Then translate-
especially.
then translate the
Look,
wars.
Look. Okay. Let me read
Translate
to you.
the
Let me
wars.
read you the verses.
No, translate the wars. You still got to do your part.
Kryptonite. Yeah,
But I have a question about the comforter.
Kryptonite is here. Okay, let me read that.
I have a question. I have a question about the comforter.
Kryptonite.
I have a question about the comforter.
Look, if you can answer the verse from the Bible, I'll talk.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Can you get out the way, brother?
I appreciate you touching me again. I'll call somebody.
No, yeah, you can call anybody you want. He's a grown man. He can talk to me.
Don't touch me.
Second King.
Can you excuse me? What's up with you, bro? Hold on.
26.
Hold on. Get this guy. Can you step aside?
This is the most step aside.
All right, thank you.
Isaiah was 22 years old when he became king.
Hold on
And
one second.
Look at this.
No, but he's disturbing.
Look, you're
disturbing
talking to
Anthony.
me or he's talking to me?
No, I'm talking to you, but he's over here disturbing.
Isaiah was
Hold on,
22 years old.
one second.
Now they want me to read the verse.
No, but Sheikh, you have somebody over there that's.
Okay, already endlessly frustrating. I wish they would just talk about their point. They're gonna talk about Isaiah.
Can y'all chill out, man? What y'all afraid of?
Isaiah.
Like we chilling, man. Come on, let's have a conversation.
You've already been refuted so many times.
Okay, anybody can
Isaiah
say
was
that. Let's
22
go.
years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And then in the same Bible you have him at 42. What's up with the different ages?
Well, the different ages are talking about him ruling at two different times.
Give me the McCarthy Bible.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah,
no, you're not.
Ruling at different times.
Yeah,
you said, right?
you look. Hold on a second. You bringing up some type of commentary or whatever. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay, now
you
look
asked
at
me a
the
question.
lie.
Wait, Uthman,
Go
are you
ahead, I'm gonna
talking to
let
me
you
or
finish.
what?
I'm gonna let you
You talking to me?
I'm gonna let you finish.
Okay, cool. Because I already answered this
Go
when
ahead.
someone else brought this
Go
up.
ahead.
But you guys can all check out God Logic Apologetics. Go ahead and check out the channel.
just sound like
You guys can
call out
see.
his dreams
You guys
after-
can see
You
the
see,
answer
this
when
is why.
we was debunking Islam and debunking a Muslim who brought up this objection, and I answered it. So I posted the verses earlier. The ruling of Ahaziah happened twice. He ruled once when he was 22, got kidnapped by the Arabians and the Philistines, and then he got freed and ruled again at 42. It's as simple as that. He only ruled 1 year twice because one, he was a co-ruler with his father while his father was in his sick bed. That's co-rulership. That's when he began to rule. All right, the first time when he was 22. Then he ruled again when he came back to Jerusalem when the people picked him as the king. And I can show you the verses. All right, so go ahead.
Now,
wait, did you hear that? Did you hear the answer?
Okay, it's gonna take a decade. This video is 47 minutes long, and they talk about this. They talk about one other point. Both of them incredibly litigious, detail, small things. So what they're talking about here as a summary is they're talking about a king mentioned in the Bible. I think it's Isaiah, they said. I'm no expert on this either. But they're talking about a king, and in the Bible it says he ruled at this age, and then in another passage it says he ruled at another age. I think it's 22 and like 44 or something like that. So they spend half an hour trying to talk about all these. They're trying to just play gotcha, and they're in the middle of a college campus, yelling at each other, talking about tiny details, discrepancies in biblical verses, and the black guy, the Christian guy, has a pretty cohesive argument. He says that he ruled, and then he got taken captive, and then he ruled later, and so that explains the 2 ages. The Muslim guy tries to completely write off that explanation and say that because like, I don't even really get his argument. Like, he basically just spends the entire time trying to go back and forth between different text versions and say, it says this here, it says this here. These are all minutia about a king that, like, nobody knows about. And then later, the Christian guy flips around and does the same thing to the Muslim. He says, there's like a small difference in the way this was written in the Quran, and so you need to explain that, or else your entire religion is invalidated, I guess. It's like, bro, what are you guys doing? I can't imagine a bigger waste of my time than spending an hour yelling at a group of Muslims that the Quran has like a plural versus a singular in one of their text versions. That small details, either in the Bible or the Quran, that say small different things does not invalidate the entire religion. Like, I feel like I'm crazy. Like, why would you spend an hour talking about that? This is not the discussion that we need to be having. We need to be having a very different discussion about morality and about society. I hope that this upcoming holy war does not look like this, because this is actually just a group of retards talking about stuff that doesn't matter. And you would kind of expect this from how far divorced from religion our society has gotten, that you now have a Steven Crowder-esque change my mind when it comes to religion, rather than actual theologians debating meaningful things without resorting to essentially parlor tricks to try and debunk each other's religion. It doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to figure out what the solution is here, because really what needs to happen is there needs to be an agreement between these two religions that we have bigger fish to fry. But the Crusade says that doesn't happen very easily. So, like, do we have to have meaningless debates in like, I don't even get it. I don't even know what to say that much. I just see these things starting to pop up more and more because influential people are converting to a specific religion for views, and then they're taking those views, and without fully understanding them, they're starting to dig their feet in the sand. For as red-pilled as people are, they're really not seeing the big picture. They really aren't. The red pill is supposed to be about seeing how our society is structured, seeing who is controlling things, stepping outside of it, and realizing patterns for what they are. Being red-pilled is not about litigating passages from obscure books in the Bible. This is not helping anyone. It's actually just embarrassing. I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know what the resolution will look like. I'll have to think about that a bit more. I just saw this earlier, and I see it being passed around in kind of right-wing circles. And it's just incredibly confusing to me. What you need to talk about, like the lowest level thing that's worth talking about here, genuinely, the lowest level thing that's worth debating in Christianity versus Islam is the divinity of Jesus Christ. Same with the Jewish religion. Literally, the lowest level that you should be debating about is the importance of Jesus Christ in our culture. That is the linchpin. There's no use talking about anything about any lower level than that because it doesn't get to the meat. It doesn't get to the point. That is all we need to be talking about. And that's the only conversation that's worth having. Truly. I don't care if the earth is 6,000 years old or 1 billion years old. I don't care if a black cube, a wailing wall, Jerusalem's a holy city for who. I don't care. I don't care at all. That can be all of that can be dealt with after the fact. Really. That's all up for discussion after the fact. We are in a dire situation. We're in a roller coaster heading towards the furnace. And these people are debating about passages in an obscure part of the Bible. And little things about whether a guy ruled for 2 years or 1 year. It's like, and I'm not even being disingenuous. This is what a 50-minute video was debating about. Who cares? We are about to run off a cliff, have a global economic crash. People are injecting crazy experimental drugs into each other, mandated. Our kids are dying. They're getting autism. I can't even handle it. And these guys are out here for an hour debating retard shit. Pardon my language, but there's no other way to say it. What are they doing? They might as well be jacking each other off in the middle of the college campus. That would be probably more productive. At least someone would get something out of that. Instead, they're just talking about Isaiah. Who cares? Talk about Jesus or don't talk at all. Do it. Because we need to figure that out, because that is the linchpin which everything else is built on. You cannot form a structure, a societal structure, without talking about God, without talking about what is divine and what is not divine on a very metaphysical level, because that is what matters. It doesn't matter if Isaiah ruled for 2 years or 1 year, and it's not like if they're going to prove, whoops, found a mistake in the Bible, Christianity is invalid. It's like, what do you expect to happen here? What's the outcome here? I don't get the gotcha. What's the gotcha? You know what I mean? I don't get it. So we need to figure out what matters, because what matters is the important part here. The people who run this country don't believe in Jesus. That is the problem. They believe in individuals above Jesus. It needs to be opposite. That is the battle going on here. This is the holy war. It's been the holy war for a long time now. It's bigger than this. It's bigger than black and white, dude. And this is why I don't agree with Wignat point of views, right? White nationalists, is because I don't think that race is a big enough factor to rule a country based on. It's obviously a big part of it. I'm not discrediting the difference between races or that you need a homogenous society in order to function. I just think that a large part, bigger than what race you're born as, is your worldview, is your religion. I don't think that you could kick out all black people and all Mexicans and have a country that works perfectly. I was watching a show last night. I was watching Bar Rescue last night, and these trash white people were running a bar. They were alcoholics. They were beating each other up, and it's like, okay, so that's where it falls short. You kick all the black people out, all the Chicago gangsters who are murdering everyone. What are you left with? Well, you're left with a bunch of white people, a lot of which are greedy and a lot of which are trailer trash people, and it doesn't fix it. Alternatively, playing devil's advocate here, just making a country Christian does not fix the problem either. But I just think that making sure that the leaders of our country, making sure that they have a worldview that lines up with the people who are living in our country, this is far more important than your genetic predisposition. That's just what I think. I think they're both important. It's kind of a nature versus nurture debate, right? Does your worldview change who you are as a person more, or does your genetics? The answer is both, but we need to be very specific when we're prescribing solutions for a broken system. And I think the prescription currently needs to be a moral one more than a genetic one. Because the only other alternative, and this is why, like, white nationalists are completely vilified, because their argument ends up in eugenics. It ends up at its logical conclusion, white nationalism ends up at eugenics, and that nobody wants that. Because it's cold and calloused. It may be effective, but it doesn't take into account the humanity of people. And particularly, we have to look at where we're coming from, right? If we're coming from individualism, where everyone's important and everyone's viewpoint is valid, you can't go directly to eugenics, white nationalism. You know what I mean? The logical stepping point from pure individualism is a moral worldview. Right? What would be the opposite? What would be the opposite here? Because the way I'm thinking about it is two sides of a mountain. On this side, you have individualism down here, like maybe like a trough, right? The bottom is the bad part. The part where you don't want to be. This is where society is collapsing. And the top is like complete harmony. A great society that's thriving. And on this side, where we're currently at, you have complete individualism where everybody is important and equally valid. You're trying to force equity. And on this side over here, what would this be? Because I see the slope on either side, this one being Christianity and this one being white nationalism. Right? So what would be down here? What's the logical extreme from individualism? It would be like collectivism or communism, right? So you have absolute liberty versus communism, where everyone is forced to be equal, right? I think that's what we're thinking about. So maybe if we had a communism problem, maybe if we had a totalitarian regime, maybe if we had Stalin Russia, right? You know, late Stalin Russia, Stalinist Russia, then some sort of racial nationalism could be the path to the top. That could make more sense. But since we're over here at American liberalism, we need to take a moral path to the top. I'm going to think about that a little bit more because I'm just kind of spitballing here, but like my gut just says that genetic homogeneity is not the path forward. It needs to be a spiritual path forward, because I don't see how you make the jump from everyone being important and valid and supreme as an individual. I don't see how you make that leap, because it's just 180. There's no path there. So anyways, I'm kind of rambling at this point. I want to get into our white pill real quick and kind of sum this up with what I think the path here is, because we're kind of heading that way. Okay. White pill. Let's go. This is the best part of the show. This is the part of the show that's gonna change lives. This is the part of the show that we need in our culture. And so I'm hoping it takes off. If you guys are liking it, if you know someone who would like to watch this, I've been putting out more short form content. I just put out a video about postmodern art and Piss Christ. so check out the YouTube channel and share that around if you could. If you know anyone who would like it, who has a lean towards that, then that would be so helpful. If not, here's my socials. Follow those for anyone watching the replay here. And for everyone in live chat, thank you guys for being here too. Okay. Here's the white pill. I think it's becoming more and more acceptable to have these conversations. And I see the fact that there's even as stupid as it is, that there's a debate between Muslims and Christians, I think is really, really important. And I think that it is a great first step into where we need to be heading. I think that basically what this white pill ends up being for me is that I'm seeing traction and I'm seeing momentum in the way that needs to happen for there to be a meaningful change in our society today. This is one of the first issues that needs to be solved. And once you start getting past some of these dumber talking points and you get scholars debating and you get a cohesive right-wing movement, because, well, that's what this is about. This is about defining the right wing. This is about defining the dissidents. Who will the dissidents be? What are their morals? And what are they fighting for from what angle? If religion is a huge part of that, if Christian nationalism is to be the solution, if that's what makes the most sense, we need to figure out what that line is, because there's different sects of Christianity as well. And if it's Islamic, which I don't see how that could even happen in the West, but if that's the case, then everyone needs to know what they're on board for. This is about gathering up the forces, being very clear on what is the problem, what needs to solve, and what our proposed solution is. And if it's going to be religious, which I think that it needs to be, then conversations like this are necessary. I think the next step past this is probably something like red pill. The red pill movement is now religiously on the same page. I think we need to figure out Islam versus Christianity in order to have a cohesive right-wing dissident red pill movement. You know, it's about all of these guys coming together and shaking hands on a common ground, and then, like I said, taking it to a higher level. You can't jump immediately to the top. Things can't change without either collapse or a grassroots regime change. And in order for that to happen, people need to get clear on what they're doing. They need to get clear on what they believe and what we're fighting for. So just the fact that the conversations like this are happening, I think is a good thing. I just really think that we need to be make sure that we're not wasting time and talking about garbage. We need to be talking about the real issues, because at the core of it, we need to have one thing that we're fighting for. And the people at the top, people who are in control, are going to be trying to distract you, disperse you. You can't overthrow a regime without being laser focused on what you need to change. This is why I think that the ultimate battle will be Christianity versus giant nose in a tank of liquid. You know, the Israeli infiltration in the United States. I don't see any other way around it, because that is what's wrong. They are anti-Christ, and because they are anti-Christ, well, you know what? That's interesting too, because we're talking about our pyramid, right? Where it's like complete liberalism and then like communism, basically. But we're talking about the slopes, right? This slope being genetics and this slope being morality, right? Or worldview, more accurately. Because Judaism is a racial supremacist religion. At its core, it's defined by the fact that it is anti-Christ. They reject Christ. And they believe that instead of Christ being able to offer everyone, no matter their creed, salvation, instead of that, they instead say that we are born Jewish, and because of this, we are better and we deserve to run things, and we're able to treat others differently than we treat people within our own tribe. And so you're kind of already, this is why white supremacy will not work. Because you can't just take away Judaism and replace it with white people. It doesn't change, because you still have the same ill. The same ill is that we're way too far on a genetic supremacist scale of things rather than a Christian worldview, a more salvation-oriented worldview. You know what? That's why it doesn't work. Because we already have a genetic supremacist elite. They're just a different religion. And it's easy to confuse them because Judeo-Christian's been so hammered into our psyche that they're the same because they're both Abrahamic, but Muslims are Abrahamic too, and they clearly don't agree with us on a ton of stuff. You know what? So that's really the math here. That's what I like this stream because I can kind of think out things. I end up with a lot of epiphanies just for myself because I'm just talking out loud to a camera. So anyone who wants to watch, great, but I'm just going to keep doing this because it's giving me a much clearer picture of what's going on in the world. Yep, so that's it. So what we need to do, assuming that nature versus nurture is 50-50, right? Let's just take that assumption. You're born with 50% inclination towards being a certain way. Your worldview shapes the other 50%. Right now, our country is run by people who believe that they're superior because of how they were born. Entirely. That's what their religion is based on. If we need to balance out society, if we need to have a spiritual upgrade, then we need to introduce more of a worldview. With that, and probably without making it go completely overboard, because if it's just an entirely, well, I'll have to think about this a bit more. But what is wrong currently with our society is that the individual is supreme over the group, and simultaneously our elites are supreme by their genetics, while telling everyone else the exact opposite. Yeah, there's kind of two layers going on, isn't there? Yep. The antidote to Talmudic regime control is Christianity. So insofar as Talmudic racial supremacist ideas are the problem with what our society is going through, then the antidote to that is Christianity. And so the white pill here is that this discussion is starting to happen. Yeah. That's great. And as a Christian, I don't see how, if that conversation is actually had and actually becomes a priority, I don't see how Christianity doesn't win, particularly in the West. I can see how Christianity would not be the answer if you're talking about like a Saudi Arabia situation. You know what needs to happen, though? We need to make very sure... Oh, I gotta go. I have a meeting in 1 minute. So I'm going to wrap this up, stop pontificating, and we'll pick this up later. Thank you guys for being here. Sorry to jet so quick. It's been a good one. Lots of stuff to think about here. Lots of stuff to think about. I think we're starting to narrow in on some very core subjects. So appreciate you guys. Have a good time. Have a good evening, a good dinner. See you guys tomorrow at 5 p.m. PST. Until then, peace.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.